Good afternoon, XJW family. This is the Oracle coming in for another edition of my vlog as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So in my last video, I started talking about the Supreme Court case, and I didn't have enough time to finish sort of the bigger question. So I'm actually working from home today, and I had a little bit of free time, and I wanted to continue the conversation. In this particular part two, if you will, of the conversation is a resounding question that has been bothering me for a while. So the title of this particular video is "Why Won't the Jehovah's Witness organization turn over pedophile allegations?" I left this organization decades ago, but I have to admit that there were layers of abuse and layers of the organization and layers of how far the rabbit hole went and how far the abuse went and how it was sanctioned by the organization. I didn't find that out until maybe 2, 3, and sometimes not even a year ago. So I'm a researcher by nature. I've been doing research since I was in grade school. I was researching at a 12th grade level in the 5th grade. So I did research. I was an intern doing research, publishing research. So even if I'm not, quote unquote, working in a research field as a professional now, I like to research things. I like to read. I like to get as much documentation and citations on things as possible. I'm actually the kind of person that when I read a news article, if they cite anything, I'm actually going to go out and read everything that they've cited. That's just the type of person that I am. I actually want to see where you're getting the information. So when I found out that there was a database, and not just one database, but a database full of pedophilia allegations, incest allegations, sexual abuse allegations, that every single congregation was keeping in a secret folder and then in a database online, and I guess they have a repository on the intranet. I'm still not 100% clear on it, but my understanding is that they keep this stuff hidden and document it away in files. I'm really concerned about that. But my bigger question has always been, why are they hiding it? Why don't they want to turn it over? So for those of you, if you're new and it's the first time you heard of the Oracle, who she is, why she show her face, and all that good stuff, please go to my very first video. I referenced the Matrix. I'm a science fiction type person. I love it. So you're going to see in a lot of my videos references to the Matrix, references to philosophy and all those type of things. I'm really into that kind of stuff. And I mean, like outside of, going to college and certifications and all that good stuff. I kind of like to think outside the box, and I like to ask the hard questions. So, but if you're interested on who I am and you just clicked on a video because you like the title, feel free to, look at my videos, click anything that's of interest to you. And I definitely, in some of my videos, give a little bit of information on my background. So feel free if you're not really clear on who I am and why I do videos. I don't do them for clicks. I do them to share information, or just to be another voice in the huge amount of voices out there in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. But the first time that I actually found out about this database thing was I came across a video, and I think it was either the ex-JW Critical Thinker or the John Cedars channel, or Kim and Mikey, or some really popular ex-Jehovah's Witness video I came across about the Australian Royal Commission and about the Campus Conti case. So again, I do have a graduate certificate in law, and I've had access to looking up legal information. So I heard about these cases, and of course I went out and researched it, and I watched the entire Australian Royal Commission and was floored. I mean, I was literally floored. Like if you listen to any of my videos, you'll hear where I came across a situation that happened in my grandparents' congregation where there was a man that I knew had been sexually abusing teenage boys, and a boy that was maybe about 10. He was gay, which being gay has no relation to being a pedophile. Most pedophiles are heterosexual. In this case, this man was gay, and he was also molesting young boys. And he had gotten disfellowshipped, reinstated, and they were still allowing him access to these young men. And in this case, the boy. And that was the first time that I realized that the disfellowshipping, reinstatement of particular quote unquote sins that are actually also crimes are not being handled appropriately in the Kingdom Hall, because literally when you have someone in the Kingdom Hall that sins but also commits a crime, what is the responsibility of the elders? And I think the problem is very multifaceted. The problem is that most of the time, the elders are not educated people. They have not gone to college. They have not gotten any specialized training to deal with these types of issues: mental issues, sexual issues, pedophilia, incest. Those are things that need to have someone that is trained to deal with them. Also, you need to call the authorities. And the Jehovah's Witnesses do not call the authorities. If you're curious about the last few law cases or legal cases or court cases, I cited the Supreme Court case and also linked it in my video before this one. Please look at, how this is continuing even till today. The Jehovah's Witnesses are losing it, and they're losing credibility in the country and all over the world when it comes to how they handle sexual abuse, especially child sexual abuse, which is pedophilia, and how they are not alerting the authorities. So when you listen to the Australian Royal Commission video and you watch it and you see that there's a member of the governing body that comes in and they talk about the over 1,000 cases of child sexual abuse and pedophilia that they have had, and not one of them was ever turned over to the authorities, you realize that there is a systemic problem in the Watchtower Tract and Bible Society when it comes to child sexual abuse and pedophilia and incest. There is an issue. So they knew about it. And they talked about it, and the governing body, they always have this, yes, we're really trying to, address this, and this is why it came. But at the same time, they don't change anything over on the side of the organization. So one of the problems is this 2-witness rule. So if a child comes to the elder and says, I've been molested by this man, he's an elder in this congregation, the first thing this elder is going to say is, do you have another witness to this crime? And if the child doesn't, there's nothing else that goes on. It goes in a little book, or they put in a little database entry and a file, and that's it. Nothing else happens. They don't go to the authorities. And see, the proponent of criminality or the finding of if a crime has been committed is much different in society. because a little girl can be raped and she doesn't have to even see the person who did it. They can do a DNA test and they can actually trace that to the person that did it, and that person can actually be convicted and sent to jail, because that's how far we have evolved with science. So the fact that the Jehovah's Witnesses are still holding on to an archaic two-witness rule, when a lot of times when abuse occurs, they're actually doing it so that they won't have any witnesses. It puts the responsibility of proof on a victim. And the problem is that if they're not qualified, if they're saying we need two witnesses because we actually don't really know how to validate this type of accusation, give it to people that are trained on it. But that's not what the Jehovah's Witness organization is doing. They're documenting. They're great at documentation. You know, they document everything, but they do nothing, and they don't turn it over to the authorities. So the courts have gotten involved because over the years, people have sued. And my last time that I actually did a rough estimate of how many court cases they've settled, it's been about 30 that you've never heard of, that they've actually just settled out of court. And there have been a few attorneys that have taken on, quite a few of these sexual abuse cases that have gone to an attorney. Because a lot of times people in the Jehovah's Witness organization don't have money to retain an attorney. So there are a lot of times that you don't ever hear about the situation. I know for people that I have grown up with, that I've just happened to hear about, that they've just faded away and they've walked away, they've disassociated themselves, and they refuse to have anything to do with this organization. Because see, a lot of times, and I'm going to talk about just a few that I know about, that there were people that I actually knew that were devout Jehovah's Witnesses, devout, would argue you down in your face, would cut you off until they were violently attacked or their child was violently attacked, and they went to the elders for support, and they found out, especially if you're a woman or as your children, that they had no support. This is a misogynistic organization. It does not support the abuse of children, and and when I mean support, I mean advocate. They do not advocate for victims of child sexual abuse and women that have been abused and men that have been abused. They do not advocate for the victims. They make it that you are under a microscope and you have a huge amount of things that you need to come in with in order for them to actually accept it. I've actually heard of cases where someone has been convicted of a crime and the Jehovah's Witness organization still sided with that person. So when I heard about, and I watched it and I saw the governing body talking about, no, we have not turned over these over 1,000 cases. I was like, oh, that must be Australia. That's international. Maybe they do things a little bit different. But then I looked at the Kansas, the Kansas County case, where that was the one where the courts actually ordered the Jehovah's Witness organization, the Watchtower Tract and Bible Society, to turn over the cases of child sexual abuse in each congregation. And instead of doing that, they actually they were paying money. So when I watched J.W. Org talking about how dare people accuse this organization of not protecting your children, well, explain. I listen, I'm high up enough that I would get all those governing body members in a room and ask them this question: why are you fighting against turning over allegations of child sexual abuse and pedophilia in your organization? You're willing to do a couple of things. You're willing to pay a fine, then turn over allegations of child sexual abuse? Who does that and can literally have a video saying that you advocate for the victims of child sexual abuse when your behavior says that you're not only are you paying a fine so you don't have to, you're actually taking this all the way to the Supreme Court to say that you don't think that you should have to turn over allegations of child sexual abuse because you feel that what someone confesses or tells you in privacy is the same as when someone goes in to a priest and does a confessional. So they're trying to hide behind any type of law that they can so that they don't have to turn over allegations of child sexual abuse. And I'm saying, why do you think that is? Now, everything I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt in that this is the oracle's opinion. These are what I think. Okay, I have heard, and again, I'm not saying it's 100% true, but I believe it. I have heard that there are several members of the governing body that have been accused of inappropriate behavior with children and with members of the congregation. And they are the ones that are pushing for this to stay a two-witness rule and not to turn it over to the authorities. I don't know how true that is. I have heard that. I believe it because I'm also trained in psychology. Why, let's go back to the John Cedars Pillowgate. And when I was watching the governing body member give a whole thing about, masturbation and pillow humping, I was embarrassed and I was uncomfortable. And I felt that something that I have always seen since I've been a member of this organization, and I left this organization when I was 17, but there's a white elephant in the room, if you will, about the way that the Jehovah's Witness organization references sexuality and references masturbation and sex. I grew up with a lot of people I grew up with a group of young people in the Jehovah's Witness organization. There was a group of us. We all grew up together. And there were a lot of people, young kids, that not only did they live double lives, but they had a weird idea about their sexuality. I remember a book that, and it's because the Jehovah's Witness organization, their attributions about normal processes and, normal growing up and learning about yourself is skewed. And I remember the book, Young People Ask. And I remember having to read that and study it with one of my family members. And I never forget when we got to masturbation and when this book was talking about masturbation. If you do masturbation too much, it will make you gay. And I knew that was wrong. And I remember laughing about it because I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But when you give people wrong attributions about normal desires and you don't give them a healthy way of thinking about it, and you don't really allow for the honest conversation, you have people that have very skewed ideas. And then you have people that when they're repressing their sexuality. And I remember, I took Human Sexuality 1 and 2 when I was in college because it was so refreshing to be in a classroom where we actually talked about it in a balanced and honest way. And that was not something I got when I was growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. And I noticed that when we talked about people that were had, weird ideas and was molesting and having, sort of these issues, it was because of this repression. And I'm like, I knew kids that I grew up with that eventually got disfellowshipped or came back or, got married and then, the wife left. And I'm talking about actual things that I heard about. And it was like always when you would kind of hear the whispers or people would tell me, and I'm like, I got my hand over my mouth, like I'm trying not to, like, are you kidding me? And you're hearing all these things about people doing these very, twisted and strange things or things that you're like, are you, what? And so it's not surprising to me that a lot of the stuff that is coming out or has come out is about a people that had this double persona or this dual persona, like, elders and circuit overseers and people that they had this outward facing, I am the most holy of holy, and then find out behind the scenes that they're actually molesting children or, have raped children. And I talked about my own grandfather that was a presiding overseer, and I didn't find out anything about my grandfather being a pedophile. A pedophile that no one ever took to not only did they not take it to, the officers, they never even told anybody in the Kingdom Hall because of the 2 witness rule. So I'm like, why are the head of the organization so gung-ho on this 2 witness rule? And why are they fighting turning over allegations so that it can be validated or not? What is the harm of that? Why do they fight against it? They spent countless amounts of money. They've gone to the Supreme Court. They've tried to hide behind rules just so that they can't turn over allegations of child sexual abuse. Why? Who are they protecting? Who are they trying to protect? And I've listened quite a bit to some of the JW org's videos when it comes to this topic. And I was listening to the governing body member who was like, I'm doubling down. There's no way that we're ever going to remove this 2 witness rule. And I'm like, I'm trained. And I'm like, there's something going on there. This person is hiding something. Either they themselves have been accused of something and they feel like they were accused unfairly, or they've done something and they're hiding behind the 2 witness rule. And again, this is my own personal belief, because listen, if I'm an advocate for child sexual abuse and pedophilia, and I think it's disgusting, and I don't want it to taint an organization that I'm a part of, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to get every single allegation, and I'm going to make sure that is being handled by the authorities and that is being investigated. I wouldn't spend $1. I would want my organization to be as clean as possible. I would want to protect the children. I would want to protect every single person that has ever been a victim of child sexual abuse or sexual abuse or incest or any of these things that they're fighting not to turn over. Now, I didn't want to make this a long video, but I did want to have a conversation. And you don't have to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness. This is not something where this is apostate lies. I mean, my understanding is that there are actually court cases right now where people are actually still members of the organization. So if you are a member of this organization, you need to hold these men in power. You need to hold them to task. See, here's something that you need to remember. People can't rule you if they don't have subjects. See, you actually have to give them the power. If you don't give them the power, if you do not bow down to them, then they can't rule you. So all these people that are sitting there allowing a 9 group or 10 group or how many people they pull in and out, the moment that you demand that this organization do better, then things will change. And they got to change about child sexual abuse. They should make it mandatory that anytime that happens, that parents are involved in the interrogation and that an officer is called in, someone that is qualified to deal with sexual abuse, especially child sexual abuse and pedophilia. It should be automatic that somebody from the authorities investigates a crime of this magnitude. This is an ongoing topic. I just wanted to brainstorm. I'd love to hear from anyone that listens. Why do you think they're not turning over allegations of child sexual abuse to the authorities? I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I know this was kind of a heavy subject, but on top of that, I wish you love and peace. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will talk very soon.